is going on, guys? Welcome back to the discussion zone. Today, we are going to be fixing the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 2026 NFL Draft. Because I'm not going to lie, last season was so freaking frustrating. Not even in a way where it just felt like, we were just one little piece away. Oh, if only we had this. But more like you'd watch the games and the same problems just kept showing up over and over and over and over again. And when that happens, that's not random. That's how the team is built. And to be fair to Omar Khan, it's not really his fault. Years of poor drafting from the previous general manager, Kevin Colbert, led to a poor, just overall roster construction that Omar has been trying to fix for the past couple years. But there are still clear holes in this roster. And if they don't address them the right way, we're going to be sitting here next year talking about the exact same issues. So this isn't going to be one of those random mock drafts where I just throw names on the screen that I really want. We're going to take Carnell Tate and we're going to get Fernando Mendoza. No, I'm going to go pick by pick, round by round, and I'm going to be building the team the way it should be built. Every pick is going to have a reason, and that reason is to fix something real. So, if I'm the GM, this is what I'm going to be doing. Before we even get into the picks, there's one trend that you have to understand with the Steelers under Omar Khan. The Steelers have selected a player that came in for a pre draft visit in each of the last 3 years under Omar Khan. Two offensive linemen, Broderick Jones and Troy Fatanu, and a defensive lineman last year in Derek Harmon. And this year, the team hosted six likely first round prospects: Spencer Fano, Oliva Vega Owane, Makai Lemon, Denzel Boston, Chris Johnson, and Emmanuel McNeil Warren. That matters because the Steelers have shown they really care about these visits, especially early on. And when you look at this roster, the big problems are pretty obvious. Losing our starting left guard, Isaac Samalo, to free agency makes a huge impact on the team. Replacement Brock Hoffman is a good plug and play guy and good depth, but if the goal is to build a young offensive line that can actually grow together, you still need a long term piece inside. At receiver, the room did improve with the trade for Michael Pittman Jr., but it still lacks something very specific. DK is a really good player, but he's limited to what he's good at: vertical routes, posts, deep crosses, go routes, and slants. He is an athletic freak, and what he does well, but he's not consistently giving you that underneath, middle of the field separation. Pittman gives you the chain moving contested catch presence, which helps a lot, but even with both of them, the offense still lacks a true separator. On the defensive line, you still need a real nose tackle because Keanu Benton is not a true nose tackle. And even with Sebastian Joseph Day in the defensive tackle room, I don't think that they really want him as the full time anchor because I think they're going to use him as more of like a versatile player on that line. At linebacker, Patrick Queen has been mid, and so it's just really been hurting us in coverage and in the run game. In the secondary, the room is good, but long term, it's really just not stable. Jamel Dean is older and has an injury history. Jalen Ramsey is older. Corey Trice just can't stay healthy. And Asante Samuel's coming off a major injury and struggles in run support. And on top of that, Brandon Eccles is solid depth, but I really don't think he's the long term answer. And we still need a free safety really badly. But with all of that in mind, let's get into the draft. All right. So at pick 21, I am going interior offensive line with Penn State guard Oliva Vega Owane. And this is really about fixing something that has kept on showing up all of last season. Because when you go back and watch, interior pressure was killing drives, and it really didn't matter what play was called. And if the pocket just collapsed right up in the middle, nothing else really had a chance to develop. And losing Samalo has made that worse. So I'm not really going to overthink this. I'm just going to fix the problem directly. Awane is built exactly how you want a guard to be built. He's around 6'4", 330, thick frame, and a strong lower half. And when you watch him, everything is about power and control. He's not a flashy athlete, but he doesn't need to be. He's from Penn State, by the way, and he played a ton of games. And by 2025, was one of the best guards in the country, and the production backs it up. Over 600 pass blocking snaps, 0 sacks allowed, 0 hits, and only 4 pressures all season. That's not really normal. That's elite pass protection. And when you turn on the tape, it makes sense. His anchor is ridiculous. Bull rushers just don't move him. And once he gets his hands inside, the rep is basically over. His grip strength is insane, and he plays with really good balance. So even when defenders try to counter, he stays in control. You even saw that show up at the combine as well. 25 bench reps on the bench. It matches perfectly with what you see on film. That strength translates into the NFL. And in the run game, when he's working downhill, he's moving people. Double teams, base blocks, anything where he can use his power, you see real displacement. Now, there are weaknesses, and they do matter. He's not a great athlete laterally, so if you're asking him to run wide zone, climb to the second level quickly, or consistently hit moving targets, that's where things can start to break down. Twitchy interior defenders can cross his face, and if his hands are late, he can lose reps that way. But here's the thing, that's not really what we're asking him to do. We're building a physical offense. We want to run inside, control the line of scrimmage, and most importantly, keep the pocket clean, especially for a rookie in or not rookie, but young quarterback in Rookie Howard and whatever rookie quarterback we draft this year. That's exactly where he thrives. So when I'm sitting at 21, I'm not chasing upside or traits that might develop. I'm taking someone who fixes a real issue immediately. You plug him into guard, and right away, the interior gets stronger, the quarterback gets more time, and the offense just functions the way it's supposed to. Now, in the second round, I'm going receiver. And this is one of the biggest picks of the entire draft for me because it's not just about adding talent, it's about fixing what the offense is missing. And you look at the room right now, DK's a really good player, but he's limited. He's athletically a freak, and he's really good at vertical routes, deep crosses, slants, and that's really where he wins. But he's not consistently creating separation underneath or working in the middle of the field. Then you bring in Pittman, and that gives you a chain mover, big slot, strong hands, physical and reliable. But again, he's not really a separator either. So what are we missing? We're missing someone who wins in early routes. Wins early in routes. They create space instantly and live in that short to intermediate middle of the field. And that's Skylar Bell, I think. Physically, he's around 6 foot, a lighter frame, and not really the biggest guy, but he's twitchy. And when you look at the testing, it backs it up. 41-inch vertical, 11-foot, 1-inch broad jump, and, and it shows up on tape immediately. That lower body explosion is real, and it's what allows him to get in and out of the break the way he does. And then you look at the production, and it's elite. Over 100 catches, 1,200 plus yards, and 13 touchdowns in 2025. That's not just good. That's one of the most productive receivers in the country. But what really matters is how he gets it. When you turn on the tape, he's creating separation. He's sinking his hips, exploding out breaks, changing tempo and routes, and consistently opening throwing windows underneath. That's exactly what the offense doesn't have right now. And after the catch, he's dangerous. He averaged over 8 yards after the catch per reception, and you see it. Quick acceleration, turns short routes into chunk plays, and it keeps the offense moving. Now, the context matters too. The quarterback play at UConn wasn't great, and you can see plays where he's open downfield or in stride, and the ball just isn't there. Even Steve Smith Sr. pointed it out, saying that if he had better QB play, he probably has another 6 or 7 touchdowns. So the production is great, but it honestly could have been even better. Now, he does have some weaknesses, of course. He's undersized, and physical corners can disrupt him early in the routes. Press coverage is something that he's just going to have to adjust to, and his job history before 2025 is something that you can't completely ignore, even though he has improved. He's also not giving you much as a blocker right now, which matters in this offense. But again, that's not really why we're drafting him. We're drafting him because he does the one thing this offense is missing, creating separation quickly and giving the quarterback an easy answer over the middle of the field. And once you add that to DK stretching the offense vertically and Pittman working as a possession receiver, now everything fits together and the offense finally has balance. So now is where we address something I think is super important to this team's success, and that is the defensive line. Because right now, yeah, we have guys, Keanu Benton is good, and I do like Benton, but he's not a true nose tackle. He's much better as a three tech or even a 4-eye, where he can attack and not just sit there and take on double teams every snap. And then you look at Sebastian Joseph Day, and yeah, he's there, but they're really not trying to use him as a full-time anchor. He's more of like a rotational, do-it-all type of guy. At least I think that's how Patrick Queen is going to use him. Not Patrick Queen, Patrick Graham. So if you're building the defense the right way, especially in AFC North, you need a real presence in the middle. And I think Darrell Jackson Jr. out of Florida State gives you that. You're looking at a massive human being. He's around 6'6", 315 pounds, with an 86-inch wingspan, which is basically top of the class length. And that shows up immediately on tape. He's got 50 career games under his belt, over 1,600 snaps, and he's been a starter across multiple programs, including Florida State, where he finished as a team captain and defensive MVP. Stat-wise, you're not drafting any nose tackle for individual production, but it's still solid. 45 tackles in 2025, 129 total in his career, with flashes of pass rush earlier in his career with 3 to 3.5 sack seasons. But the real value is what he does that doesn't show up in the box score. This guy is a freak. He can literally eat two gaps. His length allows him to lock out blockers, control them, and keep linebackers clean. And that's the key. This is the type of guy where if Patrick Queen or whatever linebacker is behind him isn't really making plays, it's going to be on the linebacker, not on the D-line. And you see it on tape. Whenever he gets his hands on the inside early, he completely stalls run plays before they develop. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like he's perfect, because he's not. He plays way too high too often. For someone his size, pad level should be dominant, and it's not always there. And he always gets moved more than you'd like against double teams, which is a problem for a guy you're drafting to be a nose. His hands can also be late, and as a pass rusher, it's basically just a bull rush. It's not really a bunch of different moves. There's no real counter yet. And his movement is pretty stiff. Like, he's not a guy you're asking him to do a stunt or anything fancy. But here's the thing. All of those things are coachable. You can't coach 6'6", 315 with that kind of length and wingspan. You just can't. And when you're talking about building a defensive front in this division against teams that want to run the ball down your throat, especially the Ravens, you take a guy like this and you develop him. This is more of a bet on traits. This is a bet on fixing one of the biggest weaknesses in the roster. And if he hits, we finally have a true nose tackle that lets the rest of the defense play out the way it's supposed to. Now is where we address the other big need in the secondary, and that is free safety. Because right now that room is solid, but it's not really complete. We traded Minkah and got Jalen Ramsey, and he stepped in at free safety when we needed it, and he did an alright job. But you don't really have that free deep safety that you feel about long term. In today's NFL, if you don't have someone who can process, cover, and communicate at the back end, you're going to get exposed. And that's where Kamari Ramsey out of USC comes in. You're getting a guy who's about 6 foot, 202, ran a 4.47, and has legit versatility. He's played deep safety, box, nickel, pretty much everywhere. And that's important because the Steelers love guys who can move around and disguise coverage. Production-wise, it's solid across the board. Over 100 tackles in his career, 8 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, 9 pass breakups, and he's shown he can impact the game in multiple ways, whether that's in coverage or coming downhill. But the biggest thing with him is how he processes. You watch him, and he reads quarterbacks really well. He anticipates route breaks, he closes throwing windows, and he's consistently in the right spot. In zone especially, he's very comfortable. He understands spacing, he reacts quickly, and he can make plays on the ball even if the production doesn't always show up in interceptions. He can also match with tight ends, play in the slot if needed, and just gives you flexibility on the back end. Now, the concerns are real though. He's not a true single high safety. The range just isn't elite, so if you're asking him to sit deep middle every snap, that's just not his game. He's much better in a split safety look where he can read and react. Run defense is also a weakness. He can be slow triggering downhill, and his tackling, while improved, still isn't something that you fully trust yet. He'll go for arm tackles at times. That's not really going to cut it at the NFL level. And then there's a durability question. He's missed some time in multiple seasons, including a knee injury that ended his 2025 season early, and so that's something teams are going to look closely at. But again, this comes down to role and fit, so we're not really drafting him to be the single high eraser. You're drafting him to play in a system that often uses two high shells, lets him read the quarterback and take advantage of his instincts. And when you look at what the Steelers like to do defensively, that fits. So now you've added a guy who can develop into your long-term safety, gives you flexibility right away, and helps stabilize the back end of the defense moving forward. All right, now staying in the third round, I'm going tackle with Markel Bell. And this pick is more about planning ahead and creating competition. Physically, he doesn't look like a normal human. He's about 6'9", 340 pounds with crazy length, over 36-inch arms. And when you see him lined up, it's immediately different. Edge rushers just can't get into his frame easily because of how long he is. And his path is kind of wild too. Came out of high school with 0 stars, goes JUCO, and completely rebuilds himself. And then ends up at Miami and becomes a full-time starter. So you're talking about a guy who's still developing and has already made a huge jump year to year. And then you look at the production, and this is where it really gets interesting. Over 500 pass blocking snaps in 2025, 0 sacks allowed, only one QB hit, and a big jump in his pass blocking grade. That's not just something that you ignore. For someone that big to be able to protect the passer like that, that translates. And when you watch, it makes sense. His length is a weapon. He gets his hands on you early, keeps rushers wide, and once he locks in, it's hard for him to get off. Sorry, it's hard to get him off. His grip strength is ridiculous. And even when he loses early, he has the ability to reset and recover, which is huge. Now, he does have some big issues, though. Run blocking is a problem right now. He struggles to generate consistent movement, especially at the second level, and a lot of that comes from his size. At 6'9", his pad level naturally gets high, and that creates leverage issues. And then in pass pro, inside counters can kill him. He'll overset to protect the edge, and when defenders come back inside, he doesn't always have the foot speed or quickness to recover. He's also not someone that you really want a ton in moving in space. Pulling, climbing, wide zone, that's not really his game. But again, it comes back to what we're asking him to do. We're not drafting him to be a finished product. We're drafting him because the tools are rare and the pass protection ability is already there. And with Broderick Jones coming off an injury and still needing to prove himself, bringing in someone like this gives you options. If Broderick steps up, great. Now you've got depth. And if he doesn't, you've already got someone developing behind him who has real starting potential in the right system. And in today's league, you can never have too many tackles. All right. So now in the fourth round, I'm looking at quarterback, and this is really about a competition and upside more than anything. Taylon Green out of Arkansas is just physically different. He's about 6'6", 225 to 230, long, rangy, and when you watch him move, it doesn't look normal for that size. And then you get to the combine, and it just confirms everything. Fastest 40 out of all quarterbacks, 43.5-inch vertical, 11-foot 2-inch broad jump. That's not just good for a QB, that's elite for anyone. He played at Arkansas after transferring from Boise State, and the production is there in flashes. You're looking at around 2,700 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, plus over 700 rushing yards. And when you turn on the tape, the running ability is very real. It isn't just scrambling, it's designated runs. It's turning broken plays into first downs. It's putting stress on a defense every snap. And that's really where his floor comes from. Even if the passing isn't there, he can still impact a game with his legs. Now, as a passer, it's a different conversation. The arm talent is there. Just watch the John Gruden episode on Taylon Green. It's great. He can push the ball downfield. He throws a really nice deep ball, and his height gives him a natural throwing window over the middle. But the consistency just isn't there yet. Completion percentage never really got above that 60 to 61% range, and when you watch, you can really see why. Mechanics get loose, feet aren't always tied to his throws, and that leads to misses, especially in that short to intermediate area. And the release is also a little long, and at the next level, that matters. It gives defenders more time to react, and it can lead to those turnover-worthy plays, which showed up a lot more in his final season. And then mentally, there's still growth needed, Processing against zone, recognizing defenders post snap, not drifting backwards under pressure instead of stepping up, all things that are fixable, but they need time. But that's the key with this pick. We're not drafting him to start right away. We're drafting him because the upside is real. A quarterback with that size, that level of athleticism, and flashes of arm talent doesn't come around very often. So you bring him in, let him sit, let him develop, and at the same time, create competition in the quarterback room with Will Howard. And that alone raises the level of everybody. And if it hits, we've got something special. And if it doesn't, we took a swing in the right range on a high upside player. So again in the fourth round, I'm looking at tight ends. And this is more about building out our offense than fix a glaring hole. But Marlon Klein, a tight end out of Michigan, is just a really interesting player overall. He's about 6'6", long frame, good size, and when you watch him move, the speed actually stands out for a guy that big. He's one of those tight ends where once he gets moving up the seam or on crossers, he eats up space quickly and forces safeties to actually respect him vertically. And his path is kind of crazy too. He's from Germany. He didn't even really start playing football seriously until high school, and then he comes over to the US, develops at Michigan, and by the end, he's a team captain and their starting tight end. So when you're really just talking about a guy who's still pretty new to the game compared to most other prospects, which matters because there's still a lot of room for growth there. Production wise, though, it's not really going to blow you away. You're looking at around 24 catches, 248 yards his final year. But when you actually watch, you can see flashes. Strong hands, it attacks the ball instead of letting it come into his body. And he's comfortable working over the middle, which is something this offense needs more of. He's also used all over inline, slot, even moved around as an H-back. So there's some flexibility there in how you can use him. Now, there are some real weaknesses, though. The route tree is limited right now, and his cuts aren't super clean, so he's not really separating consistently yet. Blocking is also kind of mixed. He's willing, which you like, but the technique isn't fully there yet. Hand placement gets messy, and stronger defenders can move him. And even at the catch point, it's inconsistent. He didn't win a lot of true contested catches, which is something that you'd like to see to improve for someone his size. But it's not about what he is right now, it's about what can become. You're getting size, speed, versatility, and a player who's still developing because he hasn't been playing football as long as most guys. So in this range, you're not expecting a finished product. You're taking someone who can grow into a reliable tight end too, maybe more if things click. And here in round five, we're going to get back into the secondary. And this pick is more about the future than anything else. Because if you look at the room right now, it's good. Joey Porter Jr., Jalen Ramsey, Jamal Dean, Asante Samuel, Corey Trice, Brandon Eccles. The talent is there. But the problem is pretty obvious. Dean is older and has an injury history. Ramsey is older. Trice just cannot get healthy. Asante is coming off of a major injury. And while he played well last year for us, even getting us an interception, he does struggle in run support. So, yeah, the room is good right now, but long term, it's not really stable. So, you got to start looking for guys that fit what the Steelers want to do press man corners, long, physical, and disruptive. And that's exactly what Prysock is. He's 6'3", almost 6'4", 196 pounds with over 33-inch arms and a 4.45 40. That's a prototype size for what the Steelers like on the outside. And he's not just big, he can actually move. 39-inch vertical, solid change of direction numbers, and over 2,600 career snaps, so he is experienced. Production wise, it's steady. 20 pass breakups, multiple years as a full time starter, 50 plus tackles in his final season, and he's been durable, starting 42 games in his career. That matters when you're talking about a room that has had injury issues. And when you watch him, you see those traits immediately. In press, he can crowd receivers early. His length lets him disrupt releases, shrink throwing windows, and just make life uncomfortable at the line. In zone, he's actually pretty smart. He reads route concepts well, understands spacing, and positions himself to take away throwing lanes. He's not just an athlete, he sees the game. And when he's beat, he's got enough long speed and stride length to recover and stay in phase. But here's where it gets real. For a guy of that size and length, the ball production just isn't there. Two career interceptions is not what you want. He's around the ball, but he doesn't finish, and that's a big deal. Then you look at his movement. He's uptight, high center of gravity, so when receivers break underneath, especially quicker guys, he can be late getting out of his pedal. This creates separation. And he can get grabby, 7 penalties in 2025 alone. That's something that will get called on even more at the next level. Tackling, too, it's really not bad, but it's not great either. More of a drag down arm tackle guy than a true finisher. But this is where coaching comes in. This is the exact type of corner that they would like to develop: big, long, press man tools with traits that you can work with. You're not really drafting him to come in and start day one. You're drafting him to sit behind guys like Ramsey and Dean and Joey Porter Jr., learn, develop, and eventually take over. And if he hits, you've got a long term outside corner that fits your system perfectly. All right, and now we're in round six, and this is where we start to talk about the linebacker room because it hasn't been good enough. Patrick Queen came in, and yeah, the expectation was that he was going to elevate the defense, but that really hasn't happened. The production is fine, but the impact is just not there consistently. Too many plays where he's late, too many plays where he's not finishing, and in a defense like this, your linebackers have to clean everything up. That's just how it works. So now you're looking for speed. You're looking for explosiveness. You're looking for a guy who can actually make plays behind the line of scrimmage. And that's Harold Perkins. Granted, I think round six is a little later than he's actually going to go, maybe round four, round five, but I'm just going based off of projections. So you're getting a guy who's around 6'1", 223 pounds. So yeah, he's a little undersized. No way around it. But he ran a 4.45, which is elite for a linebacker, top tier speed. And you see it when he's playing downhill or coming off the edge. And production wise, the dude has made plays everywhere. Over his career, 35 and a half tackles for loss, 17 sacks, 8 forced fumbles, plus interceptions on top of that. As a true freshman, he had 7.5 sacks and 13 tackles for loss in the SEC, which is insane. That's not normal. However, and even early in his career, he was a problem, like a legit weapon. And then LSU moved him off ball and he tears his ACL in 2024. And when he comes back in 2025, he's still good, but not quite the same explosive player snap to snap. You still see flashes, but it's just not as consistent. But he's not a traditional linebacker. If you're drafting him expecting that, you're going to be disappointed. That's not his game. His game is attacking, blitzing, shooting gaps, playing his space, being a weapon. When he sees it, he goes. He knifes into the backfield. He times blitzes really well. And when he gets downhill clean, he can wreck plays before they even start. That's what you're drafting. However, he is undersized, like I mentioned before, and when linemen get to him, it is a problem. He can get washed out. His tackling has been inconsistent, especially post injury. And in coverage, he's just not natural right now. He gets lost at times, especially against more complex route concepts. But this is more about role. You're not asking him to sit there, take on guards, and play a traditional Mike linebacker every snap. You're using him more as a will, as a blitzer, as a hybrid piece. You're letting him play fast. You're letting him attack. And if you do all that, now you've added something to your linebacker room that it doesn't really have: speed, disruption, and chaos. And when you pair that with what you actually have, now you're starting to build something that can actually affect games instead of just reacting to them. So now we make it to the seventh round, and this is going to be one of our three picks in the seventh round. So first up, I'm going James Thompson Jr. He's around 6'5", 308, with a long frame and built like a traditional interior defensive lineman. He played at Illinois after starting his career at Wisconsin. So you're getting a guy who's been around for a while, seen a lot of football, and played against solid competition. When you turn on the tape, the first thing that stands out is the power. He plays with good strength at the point of attack, and he's comfortable taking on double teams. He understands leverage, plays with good pad level, and you can see him consistently holding his ground and keeping blockers off of his body. He's also got a really strong initial punch, and that shows up when he's engaging linemen. He's not just absorbing contact, he's actively delivering it. And on top of that, the motor runs hot. Effort is never really a question with him, and he's going to play through the whistle on every snap. Production wise, it's solid, but not crazy. You're looking at seasons with a few sacks, a handfuls of tackle for loss, nothing that really jumps off the page, but again, that's not really his role. The limitations are pretty clear though. As a pass rusher, there's not a ton right there right now. He doesn't have a deep move set, and he's not someone who's going to win consistently on quickness or bend. You'll see flashes, but it's not really consistent enough to rely on. And he's also an older prospect. So what you see now is probably pretty close to what you're getting. But in the seventh round, that's fine because it's not about upside. It's about having someone you can trust to come in, give you snaps, defend the run, and be a part of the rotation. He's the kind of player who can fill in, keep things stable, and let the higher end guys do what they need to do. And when you're building the defensive line, you need those type of players. Then I'm going to go Jacoby Thomas, a safety out of Miami. Now, this is going to be our second pick of the seventh round. And physically, he's got good size for the position, around 6'1", solid length. And that shows up immediately when he's in coverage. He's not some elite athlete, but he's built well enough to hold his own and contest throws. Kind of like Harold Perkins in terms of uh, draft spot. I think that he's projected seventh round. I think he gets drafted fifth or sixth round, just based on my view of his talent. His path is kind of all over the place, though. He started at Middle Tennessee, and then Miami. So you're talking about a guy who's played in multiple systems, multiple roles, and then logged a ton of snaps. And that matters because he's not coming in raw. He's seen a lot of football and adapted everywhere he's gone. And when you look at the production, it's actually pretty strong. 9 career interceptions, 16 pass breakups, had a game with 2 picks, including a pick six. So the ball skills are very real. And when the ball is in the air, he knows how to find it and make plays on it. And that's what really stands out on tape, too. He reads the quarterback well, understands route concepts, and you see him jump throws underneath because he sees it developing early. He's comfortable in zone, comfortable rotating, and he can play in different coverage looks, too high, robber, things like that. However, tackling is one of his biggest issues. It's not just occasional misses, it's consistent. He had a season with over 20 missed tackles, and you see it on tape. He'll take bad angles, overrun plays, and or just not break down properly in space. And then in coverage, while his instincts are good, the athletic limitations do show up. He doesn't have elite range, and if he's asked to play a true single high, then there are reps where receivers can get behind him. So you're not drafting him to be a deep middle safety right away. But in the role we'd use him in, it makes sense. You're putting him more in split safety looks, letting him read, react, and use his instincts and ball skills. You're not asking him to cover half of the field by himself every snap. And at this point in the draft, getting a safety with real ball production, versatility, and experience across multiple systems is value. If we can clean up the tackling, tighten up the angles, there may be a path to him becoming a rotational player, maybe even more if things develop the wrong way. And with our last pick, I'm going linebacker with Jaden Duggar out of Louisiana. And this is one of those late round picks that, again, is based on traits, production, and just a guy who finds a way to be around the ball. Physically, he is built well for the position. He has good size, he moves well, and the athletic profile backs that up. When you look at how he tested and how he plays, there's a real combination of range and explosiveness that you usually don't get this late. His path is interesting too. He started as a safety at Georgetown, and then he transfers over to Louisiana and transitions into more of a linebacker role. And when you've got 2,000 career snaps across multiple positions like that, it shows up. He's comfortable in space, understands coverage better than most linebackers, and you can move him around. Production wise, it's absolutely legit. 125 total tackles. And what really stands out is how well he does as a blitzer. 12 pressures and 4 sacks in 2025. And you can see it on tape. He times it well, gets downhill quickly, and actually finishes plays when he gets there. In coverage, he held opponents to around 9 yards per catch, added an interception and a pass breakup. And again, you're seeing about a player who can contribute in multiple phases. And then on top of that, over 300 special team snaps. That matters a lot for a guy you're taking this late because you're not just sitting on the bench, he's contributing right away. However, he is still transitioning into that linebacker role, so taking on blocks isn't always clean. Bigger linemen can get into him, and he'll struggle to disengage at time. And because of that safety background, there are reps where he relies more on athleticism than technique, but that's where the upside comes in. We're getting a player who's still learning the position, already producing, already making plays, and still has room to grow. And even he said it himself, this is the worst he's going to be right now. The sky's the limit for him. So late in the draft, this is exactly the kind of swing you take. A versatile player proven production, special teams value, and a real upside if things develop the right way. Guys, thank you so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed. It took a lot of time making this video, researching, and all that jazz. So if you could like and subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated. And I will see you guys next time with my final round one mock draft before the 2026 NFL draft. See you soon.